Hi. So I was inspired to say something today after seeing the first snowdrops that I've seen this year spring up in our garden. Um, and I love seeing the first snowdrops of the year. I think they're just such a sign of hope and life and encouragement for the spring coming. And I always think it's amazing how they manage to push their way up. We've had snow and ice and frost this last week, but they still manage to push their way up and pop out, and they're beautiful. So thinking about the snowdrops, it made me aware that these bulbs are in the ground, aren't they? All winter, and then every year they pop up again, and it's amazing to see that. But it all comes from something quite small. And if we think about seeds, if we think about seeds in general, when they're in the packet, they don't do anything. They have to be put into the situation where they can grow, where they have what they need to grow before they sprout and make whatever plant it is that they're producing. At the moment, we've got a massive amaryllis in our kitchen on the windowsill, and it's amazing bulb, amazing flower that comes out of this bulb. So you get this bulb that looks quite ugly, and it's all within it. It's all within that bulb, and then it pops out into this amazing flower. So I was just thinking about going underground and what happens underground, and we take that seed and we put it into the soil and plant it, and then we wait, don't we? And that seed bursts into action underneath the soil, underneath the ground, before we see anything happening. So by the time the stalk comes up, by the time something comes out through the soil, there's already quite a lot of activity that's gone on underneath already. And that includes the forming of roots. So the first thing that happens with a seed is that it makes a root. It has to establish itself within the ground. So the roots come first, and they establish the seed, and then it sprouts, and if it's got the right environment, if it's got nutrients and it's got light that it can head for, and the right temperature, then that sprout comes up and it forms. We see it pop out of the ground, and then we see the life coming above the ground. But there's already quite a lot gone on behind the scenes already. And I was thinking about seeds that come into our lives, really. And particularly when I think about seeds, I think about words. So I think we have a lot of seeds, a lot of words that come into our hearts and come into our minds, come into us, and from all over the place. They come from things that we read, things that we hear spoken, things that our families say in our environment, things in the media, things in books we read, things at school, all sorts of words, all sorts of thoughts that come to us. And they're like little seeds that can take root. They can plant and take root in our hearts if we let them. And I suppose our hearts then are a bit like soil, aren't they? They're like soil that is waiting for these things. And depending on whether that word is good or not good, there'll be certain fruit, there'll be certain things that become visible in our lives as that seed grows and as something comes to the surface and starts to show itself. So I guess examples could be, so if I think in my life and I think of positive things, I think about words like being of value, being of worth. I'm a person of value and of worth, whatever I do. And I'm of value and worth because I just intrinsically am, not because I produce anything or I achieve anything. That every person has unique value, and I really believe that. And I've fed that seed, if you like, with nutrients. I've fed it with thoughts. I've fed it with speaking things out. I've fed it with what I read, what I say. So that becomes bigger and bigger in me, that I know that each person is of value and worth. That God says that I'm of value and worth. He says that I'm a much loved child to him, and that's not based on anything I do. It's based on what he's done and what he says. And that is a fundamental core part of me, and it's like a seed that's planted, and then I I nurture it and it grows, and then that affects how I look at things and how I see things and how I see other people, because I see other people as of infinite value and worth, whatever they do and whatever they're like. So that's a sort of positive seed that's grown. But you can also get negative things that grow in us, negative things that we feed. So an example of that for me could be, I suppose, the opposite of what I'm saying about being of value and worth. That I grew up in a Christian family and went to a church that I suppose was quite religious. And by religion, I mean that there was almost like a subconscious set of rules. There were things that that you should do and shouldn't do. You should behave well. So I think I ended up with a bit of a structure from that you have to behave well to be loved by God. You have to do things right, and if you do things wrong, then something bad might happen to you. And I guess I fed that. So in my work or in my studies, that, you know, if I did well in an exam, or if I did well and was praised in something that I was doing, that was all well and good. But we all do things wrong. We all get things wrong. And so if I got something wrong, I would be really harsh on myself and really hard and negative about myself and say negative things to myself. And that's destructive. So that's like a seed that becomes destructive within you. And it started with maybe just a thought, or just something that you read, or something that was a culture that you were in. But you can so easily feed it with other things, and you start to feel like it's real, that's you, that's normal, and that's like a flower in your life or a fruit in your life that you can't do anything about. So part of things that I've learned over the years, and something that has really helped me, is being really aware of what some of the seeds are and what some of the things are that I'm allowing to grow in my heart, and being quite intentional about looking at them. So if I see things in me that I think, oh, do you know, that's really important, that loving people like that is really important, actually not judging people is really important, accepting people as they are is really important, not trying to fix people is really important, not imposing my opinions and judgments on people is really important. And so there are things that become important, and so I feed those things and take care to really get those things established in my heart. But alongside that, there are other things that are not good. So, you know, being harsh on myself, being unkind to myself, speaking negatively about myself, only valuing myself for what I do rather than who I am. They're negative things, calling myself stupid things, and being really unkind in the words that I use about myself. Looking at a lot of the media, I mean, a lot of the media at the moment is very fear-based and negative, and we can look at the news or read stuff online, and it's just so full of fear, because it's wanting to grab people's attention. And if we feed that fear over and over and over again, then it will grow in us and become big in us and overshadow everything else, and then that affects our life and how we feel and how we behave. So behind our feelings and our behavior are thoughts and presumptions and things that we've fed, seeds that we've fed, words that we've believed and we've fed within us. So if you look at how you behave, if you look at how you feel, then you can start to get an idea of what some of those behind the scenes seeds might be and what you've fed. And a really helpful thing is to then start to think about, well, how do we change that? We can change the neural pathways in our brain. We can change the way that our thoughts automatically go down a channel. And we do that by working out what the key thought is, what the key thing is that we've focused in on, the key fear, the key lie. And then we think, well, what's actually the truth about that? What actually is true in this situation? What actually is true in me? What actually is the truth? What's the truth that I can focus on and feed instead? And I found it really helpful to actually write that down. So in my journal, I might write down 3 or 4 lines that are positives, that are positive about me, that are truth about me, that are, you know, I'm unique and I'm of value and I'm of worth, whatever I do today. I'm loved by God, whatever happens today. Find things that are right for you, that you can write down, that are truth, that counteract that lie. And we have to do this persistently. We have to persevere at it, because our brain doesn't automatically change. Our thinking patterns don't automatically change. And we have to stick at it, often for several weeks, because the opposite is so ingrained in us. But it does start to bring change. It starts to break patterns. It starts to change how we feel. And as we get the new thoughts and the new seeds growing, we find that we behave in a different way. We react in a different way. And maybe we read the news less, or we read it with different eyes. We read it in a different, from a different viewpoint, because we can actually see more clearly what's going on. So I'd really encourage you to start to think about what some of those seeds are that you've allowed to grow in your heart, and whether they're good or not good, and have hope that it's possible to change them. I'll put a couple of links on the website at the side of this as well. One of them is a lady called Kristin Neff, who's an academic in America, who's done a lot of work on self-compassion and being compassionate towards ourselves in the same ways we'd be compassionate towards other people. And I think some of her work can be really, really helpful for people. So also the resource that I was involved with called Keys to Health and Wholeness and Fruitfulness. There's a link in the helpful links section of this website, but I'll put that next to this talk as well, and you might find it helpful to have a little look in there, because we talk a lot in those sessions about how we can change how we think, how we can change how we see things, how we see ourselves, how we see other people, how we see what's going on around us. So I hope you find that helpful, and and keep that hope that it's possible. And as you look around at the moment, when things look really quite difficult and dark, and they're really tough for a lot of people, really tough circumstances at the minute, look for those little signs of hope, look for the snowdrops, and keep the hope.